Crystal Maiden is hot, like real hot, and I'm seeing thumbnails on YouTube like this, but at the same time she's been picked in 1 in 5 games. Well, I kind of found the source of this popularity, which came from a video that Purge made 2 weeks ago. If you haven't seen the video, it's pretty much a drawn out explanation about how Crystal Maiden is strong in the laning stage by doing a slightly different skill build, and he misses out on a lot of stuff throughout the game and really only focuses on the laning stage. As well as this, he mentioned stuff about the popularity in pro games is filtering down into your own ranked matches. However, this is true, but there isn't a correlation between the win rate in pro games and the win rate in your ranked games. That there's a reason why Crystal Maiden has a good win rate with this popularity, and I'm going to explain a lot of this in this video, and most importantly be concise about it. So on level 1 you should be getting Crystal Nova like every single time, and there's no question about it, and it's been like this for well over a year. And the reason for this is not because of Crystal Maiden about the damage it does, but because slows are way better on level 1 than any stun. The reason for this is because that your allies can get closer and they can hit their spells or do more physical damage, and the enemy can't run away. As well as this, if the team fight goes on long enough, you can use 2 Crystal Novas, and you can use Crystal Nova from a longer distance. But not only that, but you can also use it from the fog, like you don't have to have vision of the enemy, whereas with the frostbite you actually need to be able to see the enemy hero, and your movement speed has been nerfed a lot over the past few patches, so that you won't be able to get like multiple frostbites in, even regardless of what the damage it does. So right now we're getting a lot of dual off lanes, and it's pretty widely known knowledge to use Crystal Nova on 2 heroes and you get to harass on both of them. But what's more important here is the fact that regen has changed over the past few patches, and it's kind of like more expensive, or people aren't buying as much, so the Crystal Nova has a really good cast range. And the other thing is that the enemy can't really harass you back that easily, so you get this uncontested harass. But more importantly is that your movement speed is so bad that if you use your other spell you have to commit like a further position with like frostbite or to right click someone, and it takes longer for you to run away, and you can get punished so much easier and die, which is obviously not what you want to do. But when Crystal Maiden does really well in lane, she punishes much harder because of this advantage with health regen, because she buys tranquil boots nearly every game, and once you get 1 or 2 kills in lane she has an instant tranquil boots, and it ends up being really hard to deal with her as an offlaner or even a dual offlane. And she's just kind of this thing which is always in health, like high health, and it's hard to kind of just get those little easy kills that you would sometimes get on supports. Now, one of the key reasons why I think that Crystal Maiden is really strong right now and has a good win rate is not because of the hero itself, but because of the heroes that are creeping into the meta on her allied team, such as Pudge, Earthshaker and Centaur. All of these heroes have a small mana pool, which really struggle to keep their mana in place without arcane boots. But when you have arcane aura, it ends up being really easy to deal with. Even just 1 point is incredibly good, and 2 points is more than enough because their int isn't that high and their mana pool fills up really quickly. Now there's even some other heroes like Marana, which is very beneficial as well, but I think the fact that if you have a hero like Pudge, which is quite strong I think right now and is quite popular as well, he's always been popular, but the thing is Crystal Maiden just benefits him so much, and if Pudge gets ahead or just a few kills early on, you're just not scared of anyone in the first 15 minutes. Now if we look at the meta, it's heavily orientated around fighting regularly and being involved in fights, just even being assists, and it ends up being really beneficial for every hero on your team to be in fights more regularly. But one of the problems with this and building a faster pace of game is that your team runs out of mana. This is where Arcane Aura comes into place, but also the fact that Crystal Maiden has low cooldown spells herself, and she can move around the map and be involved in fights very regularly. Not only this, but sitting in the jungle and farming gives significantly less experience than it would be for being involved in a fight. So this is where Crystal Maiden kind of gets out of the jungle and it goes fighting more regularly, and Nova is just a better skill in a team fight, and we're seeing a lot less blink daggers because the price of that went up as well. Not only that, but if we go back a year ago, the talents that Crystal Maiden had were different, and it benefited her a lot more to go into the jungle, mainly with the fact that on level 10 she had a plus 60 attack damage talent, which was really good for helping her farm with frostbite. But now the thing is, 2 Crystal Novas will pretty much kill most camps plus a few right clicks, more so than anything. Crystal Maiden Maiden's right clicks are really bad and she relies on spells to kill the creeps in the jungle. Now this might all seem really well and good at what I've been saying so far, but where the real magic starts to happen is when you play a really good game of Crystal Maiden and you get far ahead. Before, what used to happen was you would just incrementally fall off, but now what you have is a plus 150 gold GPM talent at level 15, which is an enormous amount of gold, and on any support right now this is an amazing type of talent to have, and it allows you to get these big items like a BKB and Agnum Scepter and guarantees it in the later parts of the game, and you're a force to be reckoned with. Now if we look at Frostbite, it actually is a really good spell later in the game and is even better in the really late parts of the game, like 50 or 60 minutes. And the reason is because players are building Manta a lot less and Lotus Orb isn't being picked up that much. And what you end up seeing as well is that if a Crystal Maiden blinks in and frostbites you, then glimmers and ultis, what ends up happening is that you're forced to use a BKB, and a Lotus Orb won't really save you from that. If you can't see her, you don't have dust, you don't have someone to stun her, it ends up being that she gets a lot of damage off on you that you don't really want, so you're forced to use a BKB preemptively, or even in case where you try to gank her, you use a BKB where you didn't really want to use it in the first place. What ends up happening is your BKB charges get lower and lower. The Frostbite has a much greater effect on you, and it ends up having more opportunities to wait for your BKB to end and then blink in and frostbite you. And it ends up being this thing that's just very, very annoying to play with, and you're not really going to see people building like 50 or 60 minute mantas. Now one of the best ways of beating Crystal Maiden is actually to ruin her laning stage, and more so her carry's laning stage. And there's a few really good heroes that are good at this, such as Undyne, Necrophos and Dazzle, and what you do is you pretty much go to the off lane and you just heal up anything she harasses your allies with. And not only that, but if you're a support and you go up and you're like babysitting your carry, once your carry is self-sustainable like an Ursa or Husker, you can rotate down to the bottom lane at maybe 2 or 3 minutes and do this aggro tri-lane, and you don't have to do it straight away from the very start. Another important thing to do as well, as if you're a hero that has a stun or even a pudge, you need to anticipate when the Crystal Maiden is going to be ulting, and to be able to have your spell ready for that, especially if you have an AoE stun, which is even better because of the fact that you don't have to target her when she's invisible. Like say Earthshaker stun, Lion stun can be cast on the ground, and these are really good spells, as well as that Pudge's hook can cancel, like Pudge can cancel Crystal Maiden's channeling a spell really easily when she has BKB, and this is really important later in the game, and to save your hook or anticipate your hook for this. Now if you manage to do pretty well in the laning stage, what you don't want to do is sit back and let the enemy team get levels and experience, because the fact is when Crystal Maiden gets level 15, she's going to accelerate in GPM and almost turn into like a third or fourth core on the enemy team that you really don't want to be dealing with. So finishing out games early is usually very useful, or just being able to pick a defensive support that can rotate and save your allies if you're not going for the idea of like trying to do an aggro tri-lane or trying to punish her in lane. The other thing that's really important that you don't want to do as an offlaner is to sit in the trees, because when she uses Nova and it hits you, she can actually keep vision of you, and a lot of people don't know this, but they stand in the tree line in one position and the enemy team can pretty much see where you are, and you really want to be aware of this mechanic. Now if you're a carry hero, what's really important to do is pick a hero that's going to build Manta. Pick a hero like Luna or Anti-Mage, which naturally has Manta in its build, or if you pick something like Juggernaut, make sure that you're building this Manta, even Spectre building the Manta. The Spectre is actually a really good hero against Crystal Maiden, but the one other characteristic which is very beneficial against Crystal Maiden is any sort of silence plus physical damage on top of it. These are heroes like Riki, Clinks, who builds like a Bloodthorn, can silence you. Silencer himself actually has a lot of physical damage, and the thing is that these heroes work really well against Crystal Maiden, and she can't do anything. If you silence her, she's not going to right click you back and kill you. She can't use any spells. All she can do is Glimmer Cape and run away. If you've Dust, she's just dead. What can she really do? Only Yules herself, and she's probably not going to even buy a Yules. So it forces her to buy a Ghost Scepter, which I see a lot of people, they don't even bother buying a Ghost Scepter. It's a very underbought item by a lot of medium to low skill players. Even a lot of people in ancient bracket don't build the Ghost Scepter enough, and without it you pretty much just melt to the physical damage plus silence combo. Now on that note, I hope you enjoyed this video. I have a lot more mechanics videos on my YouTube channel, so make sure that you check them out, and if you like them too, maybe think about subscribing and hit the notification button.